Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday, and welcome to this webinar and YouTube Live from us here at Man and Machine. My name's Robin. I'm the Technical Director here, and as always, it's a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. So we're both on Zoom and on YouTube Live today, so dependent on where you're watching us from, thank you very much for taking the time out to watch the session, as always. And we're going to be focusing on Autodesk Docs today and how you can start leveraging Autodesk Docs inside of your AEC collection. A bit of an intro to the YouTube Live things, I guess. We regularly broadcast live on YouTube Live. We call the sessions the M word, and typically it's Thursdays at 2 p.m. So if you haven't joined us before on YouTube or you're watching on Zoom and want to see this kind of content more often, then check out our YouTube channel. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, turn on the notifications so that you can see when we go live and things like that. And yeah, we regularly talk about the Autodesk design space, whether it's Revit, whether it's the construction cloud. We cross over into the manufacturing industry as well and cover a whole wealth of different topics. So wherever you're watching from today, thank you very much for joining. I hope you've got a cup of coffee or a cup of tea to enjoy the session with. And without further ado, we're going to jump straight in. So as I say, the idea of today is to really take a look at Autodesk Docs. Autodesk Docs is Autodesk's common data environment or document management platform for the construction space. And the key around this session specifically is this software or this technology comes inside your Autodesk AEC collection. So if you're subscribing to a collection for the use of AutoCAD or Revit or whatever else it might be, just remember those other tools that sit within that collection. And we've done previous sessions on Twinmotion and other bits and pieces that sit inside of that collection. But today we're going to focus on the document management aspect. It's not as pretty and sexy, but it's certainly a really important part of the workflow inside of the design space. And before we get into the actual application proper, I'm just going to jump onto my Autodesk account, because if you are using this in an AEC collection, your first question might be, well, hang on, how do I get there? How do I get started? What do I need to do to start making the most out of this piece of software? So if you jump onto your Autodesk account as your either primary or secondary administrator, if you go into your products and services listing, you'll be able to find Autodesk Docs listed under your AEC collection. You can quite simply use your search at the top of the screen and do a search for Docs for AEC Collection. Once you've got that, you'll notice that little black button underneath that says Access. If you hit that black button, it will do one of two things. If you've already signed up for Autodesk Docs, it will take you straight to the Autodesk Docs platform. If you haven't configured it yet, and especially if you're part of an AEC collection and you've not set it up at this point in time, by pressing Access, it will run you through a really straightforward step-by-step wizard to get the system up and running. Simply put, you click Access, you define what you want your tenant to be called, so the name of your site, for example, ours would be Man and Machine UK, and then you specify whether you want to go on the US server or on the EU server. Simply put, the US server is, as you would expect, based on servers that are sat in data centers in America. Generally speaking, because of the development team and platform, the US servers receive the latest features and functions before we do in Europe. Okay. If you choose the EU servers, your data will be based on the EU servers, which is in Dublin, and therefore it's probably more appropriate potentially for some people in the UK. But you'll receive new features and functions a little bit after they do in the US. So you've kind of got a way up. Do we have any security policies that we need to abide to? Are we working on projects that mean that we can't host things over in the UK? So on and so forth. But generally speaking, it's kind of as you would expect. Hit Access, follow the link through, choose your tenant. Once you've chosen your tenant, go ahead and choose where you want that server to be, and it will guide you through the process. This is the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So whether you are joining through Docs or Build or Collaborate Pro, this is your home screen that you will be shown when you first log into the system. Now, obviously for me, I've got a number of different projects that are already on ACC. So I start getting instant feedback, and I've done some customization on this dashboard here. We're not going to focus too much on this today, but this gives you a really good indication as to what the platform's trying to do. So it takes all aspects of project management, whether it is the management of a Revit file on that platform, the management of PDF drawings on that platform, or the collaboration between different parties. It takes the information there and it allows you to see it on live dashboards. And you can customize and tweak these to show what you might want to see as soon as you're logged on. We're not going to have a big focus on it, but that kind of gives you an indication as to this project-based environment whereby you can access all of the projects that you have ability to do so in one location. It's a central source of truth and a central source of information. So I'm going to split this demonstration over the next sort of 25 minutes or so into two areas. Firstly, how do I get started? So we're just going to create a project from scratch and just show you a few things. I'm not going to labor too much on the how do we configure it perspective. By all means, reach out after the sessions if you want to see more. But I want to focus more on what the functionality can do for you once you've got it set up. But to start with, let's imagine that you're fresh out the box and we're going to go ahead and create a project. We have a simple form to fill out here to give this a project name. So let's go ahead and say, where are we today? We are on the 9th. So let's just say a webinar, the 9th of November. We can give this a project number should we want to. We can define what account that we're linked to. We can say that this is going to be a particular type of project should you want to. When you're working on a project, we have project templates. So what we can do inside the system is we configure a template to have or house all of the main settings that we want to work from. And then we use that time and time again whenever we create a new project. You can have several of them if you want to. It makes the project configuration easier. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to choose a blank one for the purpose of this, but generally speaking, you would. You can define the address for the project, and when you're done, you can go ahead and click Create. It takes a couple of seconds for that project to first turn on, but the first thing that you will be taken to is the members. Okay, so we've gone into project administration settings. So there's a number of roles in Autodesk Docs. Firstly, we've got the account administrator or the hub administrator. That's the person that's configured that tenant first off, and that account administrator is generally the person that would go through this initial setup. You then have the project administrator who manages an individual or multiple different projects. Then you have different levels of users that use the projects. So in here, it's my first one, so it's taken me straight in and it's saying, okay, who are the members? There's only me on there. I've not configured this from a template, so it's not pre-populated with, this person has access and that company has access. That's why you would use a project template, but for the purpose of this, it's just me. I can see on the right-hand side my individual information. It knows that I'm working at a given company. I can give myself a particular role should I want to. I can give myself access levels. And those settings are generally very much the same for all of the other individuals that you want to invite to the project. You then control what types of products that person has access to on this project. So the Autodesk Construction Cloud is Autodesk Docs, Autodesk BIM Collaborate, Pro, Build, Takeoff, so on and so forth. It's a load of different projects or products, modular, that sit within the Construction Cloud. So I control who can access what. It's bring your own subscription. So if you're setting this up as part of a collection, you have access to Docs. You can invite anyone onto this project that you want and either A, provide them a license, or B, they can bring their own license if they're a collection user or they've got their own subscription to Autodesk Docs. I'm only turning on Docs today. I can easily see from this environment that I have Docs licenses. I do not have licenses of Takeoff or Auto Specs on my account. I'm just going to add one more member just to show you the process. And I'm going to add, who shall I add? Let's add my colleague Richard. So we're going to assign Richard to this account. I'm going to say this is his company and this is his role. Again, we've already got this set up in the background, so it identifies his company and it identifies his role for me automatically, but I can change those should I need to. I'm going to set Richard up as a project member, and again, I can invite him to collaborate on those projects. Press OK to add that information. We go and assign all of the different individuals in here. And as we're adding individuals, it will also add, or we can manually add their companies. Again, this is why you have a project template. So this is done once and you can forget about it. But it's there should you want to assign different companies to different individuals. You also have overall or overarching settings for the project, such as locations and project information. And you've also got the ability to configure notifications on the project as well. We're going to skip all of that and jump straight into Docs. So we want to go straight into the Docs interface. Once it opens up the Docs interface, and again, if you've just created this project, it might take a few minutes just to populate that. But once you're in, this is what you see. Okay, so we are the administrator on this particular project. And as you can see, it's very much a blank canvas. We did not use a project template, so it is as it is. And on here, I've got all of my tool sets on the left-hand side. So I've got a drop down at the top. This allows me to change module. So with Autodesk Docs, you get Docs and Insight reporting. If you had access to Build, because you were a Build subscriber, or BIM Collaborate, because you were a Collaborate subscriber, they would also appear in this list if they were turned on the project. You can change the project just here and search for multiple different projects should you want to. And then you have all of your tools, bells and whistles on the left-hand side. Under Files, it's really simple to use. You have a folder structure. Again, this is completely blank. This is what you get out of the box. But with this, you configure your folder structure by adding folders and setting their permissions. You can configure to have naming conventions set up. For example, if you want to align to ISO 19650, you can turn that on folder by folder should you need to. Note that if you've used that naming convention, once it's been used, you cannot edit it. So make sure that it's correct before you start using it. But essentially, as you're getting started, you go through all of these different subsections and you set them up the way that you want to have them set up. So you do that for files, you do that for reviews, you do that for transmittals, so on and so forth. Each one has its own little settings button, and as an administrator, you can go in there and configure the different options. Once you've done that with that project, you can take that project and turn it into a project template, so that the next time you start a project, it just uses the settings from there. Yes, you can adjust them and tweak them and chop them and change them specific for that individual project, but it saves you a lot of time. So as administrator, you want to get those project templates set up as soon as you can. I'm going to jump to one that's already configured just because it's better showing you where you can get to and having something that's a little bit more developed. So I'm going to jump straight into one of our demonstration projects that's got a little bit more information in, and I'll show you what we've configured and how we've configured it at that point. But in this case, you can see that we're in our folder structure environment and we've got a number of different folders configured here. Wherever we have a plain folder, it means there is no naming convention control against that folder. So all of these protocol documents that are in here, for example, such as my BIM execution plans or my exchange information requirements or security information requirements, whatever it might be, they're not currently in a folder that's controlled by naming conventions. This one, however, and this one, and this one, this one, this one, all have a little tick by them to show you that I've defined that I want them to be controlled by that ISO 19650 naming convention. And by the way, it doesn't have to be an ISO convention. It can be anything you want. You choose a template in Excel, configure the naming convention in there, and upload it into the system to identify. The key with using those naming conventions is wherever they are configured and set to be used, when a file is uploaded, whether it's manually or via Revit or via the desktop connector, which is like your local sync, a bit like OneDrive or Google Drive, for example, whenever you upload a file, if the file conforms to the naming convention, it will be uploaded and dropped directly into the folder. If it doesn't, it will be pushed into a holding area, and an administrator would be able to go in and see that there's files in the holding area that are named incorrectly. We've got two options here. We can either take an individual file and say, no, I'm not having that, and we can get rid of it from the system. Or we can select an individual file and say, okay, it doesn't conform because, I don't know, the revision's not been appended to the name or something like that. We can choose to rename it, and we can go ahead and select whatever it is that we want to change. And you can see here that these are all preset and controlled by my naming convention. So this file is pretty good, apart from the status, the revision, and the classification from an ISO perspective. So we can go in and configure all of those as we need to. It will rename the file and then upload it to the right place. So you've got a level of control on there that you can run with, which actually for me is really, really beneficial. It enforces it, but it allows you to be flexible, which is really important on the types of projects that you're running. If we go into a folder, so let's just go into the work in progress folder and then fire ourselves into the architects folder here, you can see that we've got a number of different files. And firstly, just by clicking through there, you can see that we can navigate these files just by clicking through them. However, as a designer and a user myself of Revit, Inventor, Max, and all the different Autodesk applications out there, finding files is the bane of my existence. It's a pain. So when I can come in here and just search, and I can go ahead and search for the term arc, for example, for architect, and to go away that quickly and give me a list of all of the files that relate to architecture, because there's multiple searches going on, is massive. That's huge for me. It's searching against folder names, it's searching against the name of an individual file, it's searching against descriptions, or any other piece of metadata. I can take that search and say, well, actually, I want to filter it to files, and I also want to filter it to only Revit documents. That's only what I care about here and now. So let's go and search for all of those against Revit files. And again, it filters and filters and filters that list. It makes it quick and easy to find those files, which is fantastic. You can save those searches if you're doing that multiple times to, again, further make that process more streamlined for you. We can even go in and start searching for individuals' names if we want to see what file or what document has been changed, or it's not going to find anything searching for Robib. There we go. That's been edited or worked on by an individual. So you've got a hell of a lot of control here. You can use that to your advantage. And this is just, as soon as you start using it, it's there. It's instantly giving you that ability. If we look at that individual folder, and again, these are just things that Docs does for you instantly. I can grab any folder and I can start looking at what's going on with that individual folder. So yes, we can have permissions per folder, as I said to you earlier during the configuration. We can also go in and we can start saying, okay, well, I want to subscribe to a folder to be told when something's uploaded, or see what's happening on that folder. We can go to an individual file. So I'm just going to go and find an individual Revit file here, such as this one. And I can grab this file and use the three dots on the end to look at file activities and actually see who's done what with this file at any given point in time. We can filter and export these to see who's opened the file, who's saved the file, who's done anything with the file, who's added a comment to the file. And again, that's hugely beneficial from a user's perspective to be able to trace that. You've always got that audit trail for information management or whatever purpose you might need it for. The file can be opened and downloaded just by grabbing the source file, but it can also be viewed online. If I grab this file, it will open it up on a viewer. We can support a huge array of different file formats, not just Autodesk, so whether it's an Autodesk file, a SketchUp file, a file from Inventor, from SolidWorks, from an IFC, from Tekla, whatever it might be, there's a huge list of files that we can support. So go and check that out, because it will give you the appreciation of what we can view and what we can't view. We can even view point clouds directly inside of this system, so you can navigate a point cloud on the cloud. Not all of the viewing functionality is the same across different files. Naturally, it's better with the Autodesk files. It would be, but just bear that in mind. You can view most types of design-related data in here, as well as PDFs and as well as 365. So if you want to go and edit a Word document, we can just click on that directly inside of Autodesk Docs, and we can edit that inside of the Docs environment as long as we've got a Microsoft 365 account. Hugely powerful and saves you a lot of time. You don't have to download it and open it in another system. So we can view 2D information and we can view 3D information. And again, that's just by uploading that document in. It doesn't take any additional data or any additional settings to get that to work inside of the system. It's just a case of uploading it and telling it what views you want to be able to work with inside of that application. Whether you're in 2D or 3D, you can start adding issues to your files to control where you've got snags or where you've got problems. And you can also, in 2D files, have red line markup, which can either be private or published to the wider team to be able to share comments between the different people that are collaborating on the project. Again, they're controlled with permissions, so it'll only let you do something if the administrators have told you you're allowed to do it with your permissions. If I go and look at any one of these individual issues here, like this one, we can see that issues can be added against components or any location in the file with a raft full of metadata, which is customizable. So we can get people to log issues against anything on the file, should we want them to do so, and we can get them to pinpoint the information that we want to find out when they're logging that issue. Issues again can be private or published to the wider team. They can relate to different files within the application should you want them to, and at any point they can be scheduled out. The key here for me is the ability to also link these to Navisworks and Revit. So if you've got a Revit designer that you want to go and work on an issue that you've identified inside of this viewer, rather than some dumb red line markup, use an issue. They can open Revit, click on the issue, and it will take them to the exact same view that they're using inside of Revit, like what we have here, and it will highlight and show them what that issue is. We can see all the detail directly inside of the authoring tool, which for me, it just makes it so easy. It's really, really beneficial. Once they've made that change and they've resaved that file, Revit will up version, or Docs will up version that file. So whenever you upload multiple files onto Autodesk Docs, it has version control automatic. So rather than overwriting the file, full stop the end, it will up version the file every time. Doesn't matter if it's PDF, Revit, AutoCAD, you name it, any file format will do that. But what you can do with the Autodesk functions or the Autodesk tools is we can tap into those versions from a comparison perspective. So I can go ahead and look at version 11 to version 12, and as long as I'm comparing apples with apples, so 3D view to 3D view, or 2D view to 2D view, Autodesk Docs will automatically tell me what's changed between those two files. No configuration necessary. This is an off-the-shelf, open the box, the functionality is there. You don't need to set it up. We can see what's been removed from the file, what's been added, or anything that's been modified. Those lists can be filtered for disciplines, architectural, structural, and mechanical. And we can also search there, should we want to, for any individual type of component that might have changed. Again, these things, historically, to see what's different between a file, it's doable, but you might need a different application that needs an upload, a configuration, and so on and so forth. So it just does it here. It really is a joy to work with. And it does the same thing on a 2D file as well. So if you go and have a look against the 2D information on the ground floor GA, we just choose to compare maybe version 10 with version 12 on the ground floor GA, and we get the same functionality, 2D or 3D. We can overlay the information, or what I quite like to do on 2D is see them side by side. So you can go in and physically see what's different between the files. Really nice, works extremely well. And all these changes can be exported again should you want to. Those versions are also useful for backup. because it always overwrites as a new version, we always get that old version which is backed up. And that can be copied, it can be downloaded, or it can be made current again should you make a mistake. On the subject of security, it's impossible to delete things from Autodesk Docs. It's impossible to delete things. There's no delete function. We have a delete button, but all it does is it archives into a recycle bin, which you can see here. As a full administrator, there is no way for me to do anything other than restore that file. We had an instance recently where a company and an individual parted ways. The individual tried to delete a load of data upon leaving the company. Impossible, couldn't be done. It was just restored within seconds. So something that historically would have been quite painful and certainly a very difficult situation was rectified with 2 clicks of the mouse. So, you know, unlimited files, unlimited file size. There's a couple of limitations around depth of folder, but none of the ordinary file limitations or size limitations or anything like that. Really, really modern, straightforward, streamlined, easy to work with, easy to configure. It's just a pleasure to work with. So as well as uploading and downloading files and working on here, you can also see that we've got a load of metadata against each and every file. All of that metadata that you can see is fully customizable. I'm still in my deleted items. So we can go in at any time and look at metadata. We can chop and change metadata, and we can control if that metadata is a drop down or a piece of text or you know, whatever it is that you want it to be within reason. So we've got a lot of control and customization. We can configure what attributes are visible, what you want, what you don't want. It's just a case of spending some time setting it up. Again, the general consensus is you set up a project, configure how you want it, and then that becomes your project template. If you need to make a change, you change that for a specific project and then you save a new project template for use later. As I say, this works directly inside of Revit. So you can open files in Revit directly from this environment and save files in Revit directly to this environment. Those models would be cloud models. And so long as you are working on them solely, one at a time, and there's no work sharing, Autodesk Docs is perfect. As soon as you need work sharing, you have to look at BIM Collaborate Pro, which is a separate subscription, but it depends on the size and the situation. If you're not work sharing, Autodesk Docs will be fine for a cloud model. Once that model's gone up and down and round the houses, you might get to a point where you want that model to be approved, or you might want someone to review that model. We can go ahead and select any number of files that we've got in here. And against those files, we can then say that we want to run those through a review. We can do other things in here as well, like create public links that don't need a license to be able to share and download. We can lock the files so that they're locked to me. No one else can edit them while I've got them locked. Think of it like a checkout, for example. But we can submit these for review. We've got a number of different review processes on here, which allows me to control the status of these files. What I'm going to go and do here is just do a simple one, an internal review. It's just a one-stage review. Goes from an instigator to a reviewer, and then you have your result. You've got a whole load of different types of template. I don't know if I've got any configured actually on this particular one. So before we run it, let's just go into reviews and show you that if I create, we've got a load of different step processes. So we can have single approval, double step approval, multiple eyes approval. It's just a case of configuring who can start the approval, who are the different groups of people that can approve or deny, and what's the flow of information. And then what happens at the end? What happens to the file once it's gone through that process? Again, it's really straightforward. It's all GUI based. It's kind of a pleasure to work with, to be fair. So let's just grab a load of files. Doesn't really matter what they are. And let's say that we want to send those files for a review. Choose the review that we want to do. Give the review a name. Let's call this 9th of November webinar. And let's go ahead and there's my files. If I forgot one, I can add more files here. I can add some notes. and we can say submit. Anyone that's on that particular review as one of those individual people will start to be pinged emails and notifications if you want them to. I'm not going to be mean, I'm going to skip this. We can skip those notifications, but we can go in and notify people of that information coming through. And from their perspective, they would get a link to come into the list of reviews. And as you can see here, again, this is all off the shelf functionality. We've got a list of all the reviews that are either open and in progress, overdue, or open and waiting. I can also see archive reviews if I have them. If I open my review here, I'll be taken to this screen where I can see all of the individual files, any notes and any information pertaining to them. And I can grab those files, click on them, and go straight into the viewer to do some dimension checking, do some visual reviewing, add any issues that I might see fit as part of that review, so on and so forth. Essentially, I review the file. And we could say that the output of that is these three files here. I can go ahead and say, okay, well, I want to approve those individual files, or I want to reject those individual files. And from each file that you have, you can go in and control whether or not they are approved. Helps if you hit start review first. Apologies, I missed the button. And then we can go ahead and say, well, this one's approved with comments, this one's rejected. And I'm just doing this off the cuff, but you can be very specific with the information that you want to have. We can also delegate the task if we want to ask someone else to check this review for us. Everything is logged, including the activities and the progress that's happened as part of that review. And then we submit it. I'm going to take everyone out of here apart from myself and submit that. So we can log the fact that a file has been sent to someone, someone's had visual eyes over it and given it a stamp or not given it a stamp. And we can control that information. Based on this being closed, those individual files might have been copied to a folder that has external facing permissions for someone else on the wider external project team to pick up and run with. Again, it's just part of configuring what are the actions upon closure of that review. In this case, I'm just going to say transmit all. We've got a button within the closed review that kind of knows you're going to want to send those files. You've just approved them. So the likelihood is you want to share them with someone outside of yourself and your desk. So we can come in and we can say 9th of November webinar. The recipients are, let's spam someone, let's spam Richard, he won't mind. Let me spam Richard. Permissions, let's say recipients can only see themselves, so it's like a BCC. Here's the files, message, and then press create. The transmittal is then sent. And everything that we do is live linked. So we've got the links here to go straight to that, or we can go to our transmittals and we can see the individual transmittal itself. Against every transmittal, we've got a list of files which we can work on individually or export as a zip file. We can see the list or details of those files individually. We can see who's sent and received. And most importantly, it will note if that individual has received it. And then we can start to see any reasons as to why they might not have downloaded the latest version of the file for the latest collaboration meeting or the latest data drop or whatever it might be. So we've got a lot of control there. It kind of audit trails that whole transmittal process, which again, for me, is a really, really nice process. As part of this, the whole key here is really better data management or information management throughout that phase of the project. Whether it's sharing files, whether it's reviewing, sending data, or even, as I said earlier, logging those issues and the ability to look at the issues individually on the cloud if you're not a Revit user, in Navisworks if you're a reviewer inside a Navis, or even inside a Revit if you're an authorer. So you've got a lot of control there, and again, hugely, hugely beneficial. Even to create issues outside of the model and then link them to the model is a possibility. So it gives people that are not used to that coordination space in 2D or 3D the ability to log things and have them tracked against the model. all of this really starts to come to life with the ability to then get information out. We've got a few different ways in which we can report from inside of Autodesk Docs. But my favorite is to use some Power BI based reports to be able to get some visual reports. So in here, we've got dashboards, and those dashboards we can customize and tweak. And the dashboards are very Power BI centric. So you basically have a card which you can control what data is in there and how that card acts and reviews. And as you can see, whilst we've got some default dashboards, we can come in here and customize those as we see fit. But we can also download data connection Power BI templates to give us a load of Power BI information or data sheets to start with. Again, they can be chop and change, but they give you an insight as to the different data points that you can connect to and how they work, and then you can customize them and tweak them to your heart's content. And you can load these straight up into Power BI should you already have access and licensing to do so from Microsoft, sorry. And really, in a nutshell, a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but that's kind of all I wanted to go through today, just to give you an appreciation of what is Autodesk Docs, and I actually have access to that in my AEC Collection, a cloud-based common data environment that aligns to ISO 19650 practices and actually gives you a lot of tool for your money. So I do implore you to go and have a look, open up manage.autodesk.com, find Autodesk Docs for AEC Collection, click access, choose the server location and the tenant ID that you want, and go and have a go. Set up your first project, convert that into a project template, invite some other people to collaborate on, and you really start to get this connected, singular source of truth throughout the project phase. And if you expand the ACC collection because you decide that you want to do cloud-based work sharing, or because you want to start leveraging site-based collaboration with build, or you want to start doing some cloud-based takeoffs or cloud-based clash detection, everything just grows from that single source of truth. And at the heart of it is still those design files that are there and the living, breathing heart of that particular design process. So from me, that is kind of it. Again, I'll implore you to take a look at it on social media. If you're new to these sessions, we run them most weeks, Thursday, 2 p.m. on YouTube Live. Check us out on LinkedIn. We always put up there when we've got new content on there, whether we're live or it's pre-recorded. And check out the website at manandmachine.co.uk because we're doing regular events, and whether it's an in-person event, we've got one in a few weeks' time in Milton Keynes, talking about PCERT, which is a professional certification from Building Smart. Check us out. Let us know what else you want to see on the next ones of these. I really hope that's been useful and a useful half an hour of your time. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Take care, and I will see you again soon. Thanks very much. Goodbye.